I would probably start like mid-July. Um, Start on like the actual application materials. You can start looking at internships and like doing the search process as early as you want. So like I'm one of those weird people who likes to look up internships. And so I have been looking at internships probably for like since my second year.
What is up, fam? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Phil Sarpon. This is Phil's Guide to PsyD. This channel is dedicated to all things psychology, wellness, and graduate school. Today, this interview is a continuation of the interview that we did with Tanesha not too long ago. This particular interview goes into depth with the internship process. And so if you are in grad school right now, getting ready to apply for the internship, this video is going to be really helpful because Tanesha goes through her process. She is already in her internship right now. She's actually applying for her postdoc at the time of this video. And so she's already been through that process. And so she shares a lot of really great insight, advice, knowledge, and input into how to navigate through that process. If you have not already, please like and subscribe to the channel for more content. And with that, let's go ahead and go right into the interview. All right, Tanesha. So thank you again so much for kind of taking us through your graduate experience. I think it's really helpful for people just to kind of see different perspectives of people who had their own unique experiences in graduate school. I did want to take the time to go into the internship a little bit. I know it's kind of an intimidating thing. I
Yeah.
haven't even started on the process yet. I'm still like a year away from that, but I get a little intimidated just hearing about some of the third and fourth years talk about it. And
Mhm.
so I'm sure we have some people listening and watching in about how their fears or anxieties about internship. And so maybe you can kind of give us a little bit of a rundown of what the process was like for you, what you guys had to do in your program, and kind of the steps.
Yeah, okay. So it is scary. I will validate that fear because I was scared last year. I'm still like not even sure how I made it through without freaking out as much as I did. So I think that sort of the process is, at least in my program, there are some like pre-approval things you have to get done. Sorry, my dog just woke up. So you have to like propose your dissertation before you go. It would be great if you're done with your dissertation. They would love that, but if not, like it's not a huge deal. I think that some programs say it's a big deal, but it's not as big as a deal as it may be like it may seem. And then so you submit transcripts, you do 4 essays. There's an autobiographical essay, there's a diversity essay, there's a theoretical orientation essay, and then there's like a research essay. And so all of those are 500 words. But those I would say like stay the same across the board for the programs you're applying for. So you only really have to write those 4 essays. But you want to make sure they're good essays that you're going to share with all the places. And then I think the biggest thing that I didn't know was as big of a deal is the cover letters. And so each school needs their own specific cover letter. And I think in my mind, the essays were more important, but now that I'm looking back on it, I think like the essays are really important to like for the like committee to get to know you, but the cover letters are really how you're gonna sell like your match with the programs. I'm trying to think. And then you need letters of recommendation. You need 3 letters of recommendation, I think. And then your DCT has to approve your like hours that you've done. They like certify it. I'm not really sure how that part works. He just like told us to send him this form and we did it and somehow, some way we got the certification. Um, and yeah, I think that's it. You apply through the APIC. I think it's fairly simple. I just think it's um, there's just a lot of little steps, I would say.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I think for our program too, the school will help you. There's like I know every school kind of has a certain number of applications that you can send out. I think
Mhm.
our school is around 15, and then after that you have to like pay a certain amount of money to send your application to more schools. How does your guys' program work in terms of that?
Yeah. So our program like has like this sort of like grad student savings fund thing that you get like every year. And so what a lot of people do is they save the fund over the 4 years and use it for internship. and use it to like travel. And so I applied, I think almost everyone in the internship cohort applied to like 14, 15 places. And yeah, so like our program had the reimbursement process, but it's fairly quick because everybody does it that way. And then I think before the fund was really so that you could like travel to interviews and stuff, but most of the interviews have been virtual, and which has been really nice. And so
Yeah.
um, there's like more money for applications or whatever else you need.
Got you. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so, when was the application process? Did it start in like September, October, or like when did you actually send your application in?
Yeah, so the due dates are normally around November 1.
Okay.
Um, but I would not start working on it in October. I would highly recommend starting it in the summer, at least starting your essays, because you want to give yourself enough time to edit it. You want to give like your faculty member mentors times to edit it. So I want to say I started that maybe like mid July, early August, so that I had like I think I did like August and September. My mentors were like reading my essays and editing and like helping me like make sure that the essays felt like me. And so I would probably start like mid July. Um, Start on like the actual application materials. You can start looking at internships and like doing the search process as early as you want. So like I'm one of those weird people who likes to look up internships. And so I have been looking at internships probably for like since my second year. Like when I'm in class or like if there's stuff like if there's downtime and I just needed something to be doing with my time, I would just like look at internship stuff. So there's like I feel like there's no there like you can't start the search process too early. I mean, granted, some of the places might not have positions, but like you can still get an idea of like what sorts of things you want. But I think like the materials part, I would really recommend starting probably mid July, or like at least starting to figure out what you want your goals of internship to be.
You know, the part that you mentioned about even just looking at internships, even if you're in your first or second year of your graduate program, I think is so key because we actually got that same advice as well. Just because when you look at the internships, you kind of figure out, okay, this is what they require. This is the amount of hours that they require for certain populations. And so it kind of, I think, helps you to figure out, okay, this is what I need to do in order to even apply to this place because
Right,
I may get
exactly.
to the internship part and I may not have enough hours for a certain population. And so if they don't have those hours, they may not look at my application seriously. So yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah, that's one of the things I did. There was a place I really, really loved in North Carolina. And so like I found the hours and I was like, okay, these are the hours, my goals. And I feel like they were the highest hours I had seen across the internship. So I feel like, all right, this is the goal. We need to hit these hours so that we can apply here and other places too. So highly recommend that, looking
Oh,
early.
very cool. Okay, and so you got the application in. When do you start hearing back for interviews? Like when is the timeline for that?
Yeah, you start hearing back like I would say probably around Thanksgiving. I think I heard back from one place before Thanksgiving, and then from like Thanksgiving-ish to Christmassy is really when the time is that people start getting notified about interviews. Because then, like some places start interviews before Christmas, and then other places go until like February for their interviews. I think I had an interview like maybe not the first week, maybe like the last week of January was my last interview. So
Okay.
yeah, it's a big chunk of time to be waiting and figuring it out. But yeah, I feel like the waiting part is the worst.
Oh my gosh. I can only imagine because especially if you're starting the process in the summertime and then it takes a couple months to go through all of that, you figure out your application, you send it in, and then you get the interviews. It's like it's almost like a year-long process that you start to finish. Like so it
Yeah.
I can only imagine that. So when did you so I know there's like the match day part,
Mhm.
right? And then there's like a part two. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so part one, or is it called like phase one, I think, of the match is done by like probably like February 19th, like somewhere mid to late February. There's match day, and then you find out if you match or if you didn't. I feel like you rank places like about 2 weeks before that. So you take all the places that you interviewed at and then you rank them and then you submit them to the computer algorithm. And then at the same time, places are also ranking you. And so I have no idea how it works on the the people ranking you side. I know how it was for like me ranking, but so you rank them, you spend, I don't know, weeks trying to figure out where you want to rank places, what it means like to rank. I think for me it was hard because some of the places had multiple positions that I was applying for. And so like figuring out, do I like clump all these places together? Do I like put them in a different order? There's all these like strategies, but like really I think the best advice I was given was like go with your heart and like how you would want to go like in the order and like let that be it, and let that be how you determine your rankings. And so then you wait for 2 weeks and then you go get match day. And then if you don't match, then you roll over into phase two, which I think phase two is over by like before April. I feel like it's really fast. Like you do cover letters again. You'll interview again with different places that didn't fill their spots in the phase one of the match, and
Okay.
then match for phase two. I want to say it's like March, but I can't
Okay.
remember exactly when it starts or when it ends for phase two.
Got you. Okay. Okay. Very cool. I mean, yeah, there's obviously, it seems like there's a lot of different steps involved. It seems like there's a lot of obviously different parties involved as well. And so how was the like finding out where you were matched? How was that day like for you? How was that moment like
Yeah.
for you?
Oh my gosh. I was like in shock for like hours. Like I don't know if I didn't think I was gonna match or if it was like I didn't match where I thought I was gonna match. Like it was just like too many feelings and my body was just like not processing. Like there's a whole chunk of time I just don't remember like at all.
Yeah.
And I know I was probably just like sitting in my house like zoned out. So basically what happens is if you're, well, I want to say it starts at 8 o'clock Eastern time. So like when I was in St. Louis, I was in Central time. So it started at 7. And so you wait to find out, you get an email, and the email will be like, you matched and here's where you matched. And then after that, the director of the program that you matched to will call you. So she called around like noon or something. So after I matched, I called my parents, obviously, because that's what
Yes.
people do.
Absolutely.
I called my parents, I called my grandma, um, and then I waited for the call from the program. She basically just was like, "We're so excited that you're going to be here. Here's some things that you need to know right now." But like a lot of the stuff she didn't really go into. She was just like really congratulating us, which I thought was really nice. And then I sat around and zoned out for a couple hours, and then we had like a match day celebration at the food hall for my program. So it's like
Wow.
I feel like it's a stressful morning. Like if you get up before the time, like I wish I had just slept in, honestly. Like I woke up,
Yeah.
I was so anxious. I wish I would have just like slept in and then woke up and found out. But I think part of the reason why I woke up early is because I didn't want, like had I not matched, I wanted to make sure I told everyone, and then I didn't
Yeah.
want people spoiling it for me because I know that has happened in the past in our program. Like people, like the program gets an email about where people matched, and so like people will be like, "Congratulations," before you even found out. So I was like, "Okay, I don't want to be spoiled, and I also am so anxious. I need to know." So yeah, it comes out like around 7. I think my email came in at like 7:15. So I had been waiting, and I was like, oh my gosh, this means I haven't matched, and sometimes email systems just take forever. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting though. I mean, congratulations. I'm sure
Thank you.
the 4 years of hard work and, all the studying and all of the things that you had to do to finally get to that moment of like, oh my gosh, okay, now I get to go into the internship. I mean, it's just like one step down, but it's still like a huge,
Yeah, it's like the
huge
big step.
milestone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's amazing. That's awesome. What was it like for you? Okay, so after that process, in terms of like transitioning now into starting your internship, how long did you have to get ready? Did you have to get ready right away? Like, how was that transition for you?
Yeah, I think I started trying to like find apartments and stuff like as soon as I found out. But I'm at University of Florida in Gainesville, and so it's a college town. So like a lot of places were like, "Oh, we're not ready for you all to like look at apartments yet." So I feel like that part was really stressful for me because I was like, I don't have a place to live. I'm not gonna find a place to live. Gainesville is really small, and I was like, I don't know. And I was like worried about living in like an undergrad apartment. I was like, I can't do that again. I'm not an undergrad. I have an old dog who's very mean. And like, I was like, I can't do it. Um, and I think like it was just like stressful trying to get transitioned down here. I think there was like a lot of stuff going wrong with the apartment I picked out, blah, blah, blah. It was not a great time. But I think academically, like it's hard because like you're basically done. Like I was like, I don't know, it's like when you get senioritis and like you've been
Yeah.
accepted to college, you're like, well, I don't need to really do anything else. I was still taking a class, and so like getting through that class was so hard. Like it was like pulling teeth. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do any more of this. Um, and then there's just like paperwork stuff you have to do, like background checks and stuff like that. So, I mean, I feel like it wasn't difficult, but it still was like stressful, but like
Mm.
not the same stressful as like applying. Just like, oh, I have lots
Mhm.
of things to do. Like, you have to basically like wrap up your program and be done
Right.
with that to like transition to this new program. So
Right.
that's been, I think that was like the hardest part of like, for me, like I at SLU, I was in like a lot of positions. So I was like transitioning those positions over to new people. And also like I was like holding near and dear to them because I like didn't want to let them go. It's like, I've been here for 4 years. I don't want to leave. And like, it's just like lots of, I think, starting something new feelings too. Of like, I have to leave here to like transition and do something else. And so I think that was like really difficult for me.
I mean, moving in general is, I hate moving. And so,
Oh my
in
gosh.
general, like that is a stressful process. And so, when you also have other things that you have to do, whether it's finishing up with school or paperwork for the
Yeah.
new internship, yeah, I'm sure it can be overwhelming. And I'm sure you had to drive too, right? To relocate and everything
Yeah.
like that too.
Yeah,
So,
I drove. Yep.
yeah. So, yeah, fun. Fun stuff, I'm sure. So, in starting your internship, are you with other interns, or what was that process like for you? And your first week of your internship.
Yeah, so luckily there was a girl from my program who was here already at internship, Hannah, and so she was in a different like area, but like it was nice knowing that like Hannah was here as like my like the more senior student for me. I was like, I don't know what to do, Hannah, and she's like, it's fine. Like I think the first week was a lot of like orientation, but like the first real week, um oh wait, sorry. You asked two questions too. So first, I'm not the only intern. There's 13 of us. There's three child peds interns. I want to say there's five health psychology interns and then five neuropsych interns. So I feel like our class is bigger than most internship classes. And so I'm the only child intern, but then there's two pediatric psychology interns, which pediatric psychology is more like the medical side of child psychology, where like child psychology is more like whole child stuff. Okay.
Gotcha.
So from there, I think it was a huge transition. Like, I think you get so used to the way that your university does things, the way that their practicums are run, and like transitioning to a new one, it's just like, I don't know. There was like imposter syndrome all over the place. I was like, I cannot do this here. Like, I cannot do this. I think it was just like a new area. I had to figure out like the hospital system, learning how to do notes in Epic. Like, there's all this stuff that I just didn't know. And I was just like, oh no, this is not for me. Send me back to St. Louis. But I think once I got over that, it was a lot better. But I feel like the first like 2 weeks almost, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, I'm gonna have an awful time here. Like just like the learning curve alone, like I
Yeah.
was like, I can't do this. But then I had like a clinic startup that I had been familiar with, like PCIT, like parent training. And so like I had that clinic, and this was the first clinic I felt like I knew something in. I was like, oh my gosh, like I totally have learned this. I'm like a whole psychologist. Like I know these things. And so
Uh,
it was like a life raft for me. And I feel like once I had that clinic, it like changed how I was able to like move
oh,
from being
yeah.
scared in all these other clinics to just being like, I'm new and I'm learning. And I
Yeah.
also have these skills that I'm bringing with me. It's not like I'm starting from scratch. And I think once that happened, it was a lot better. Like it's been great since.
That's amazing. I know that imposter syndrome is so real for even all the classmates that I taught to. Like, I feel like every year that I've started, even a practicum site, right? There's a huge learning curve involved, just like you said, in writing notes and the different systems and transitioning through that can be absolutely very challenging. And so, but it's cool too, because you mentioned how like all of the things that you've learned and the fundamentals, it does kind of come back and it does, I think, help you to kind of go through it and you start to realize and get more confidence of like, oh, I've gone through this before. It's okay. I'll be okay. I'll learn it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so you start to become a little bit more patient with yourself too.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, I think once I was like in that seminar with parent-child interaction therapy, I was like, oh yeah, like it felt like all the knowledge I had like came rushing back. Like imposter syndrome was like a dam holding up all this stuff that I had known because I was just like in shock. And then like once that sort of stopped, I was like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. Like I know how to talk to kids about chronic pain. Like I can totally do that.
Gotcha.
Like it just,
Gotcha.
yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And so is your program set up where after your internship is when you guys officially kind of graduate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Got you. Okay. Because, yeah, that's kind of the same thing for us as well. And so, when would you start looking to apply for your postdoc? Like,
Now.
oh, pretty much now.
Yeah, like almost as soon as you like get here, like we had a didactic in July where it was like pre-talk about postdoc, but we're not going to talk about it now, but it's coming up. And then we had like our official postdoc talk like Friday, so like 2 days ago. So 9/9, September 9th is when we had our like official how to apply for postdoc and stuff like that. So it comes up really fast. I feel like, like some of the concerns I had when I was applying to internship was like, would I have enough time for like these supervisors to get to know me enough to like write me a letter? But it's like a lot of time because you're spending way more time in clinical stuff than you are doing. I mean, like almost 100% of your time is doing clinical stuff with these supervisors. So, like, they get to know you really fast and your skills really fast. And so they're able to write those letters like very soon
Very
after
quickly.
getting started.
Got you. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's always like you get done with one thing and then there's always the next thing that you have to
Exactly.
like just jump
Exactly.
right back into.
Yeah, I
And
feel like
so
everyone.
what about even the licensure exam? So when would most students take their licensure exam in relation to like when they start their postdoc or after or so forth?
Yeah, it really depends. So recently I learned that some people, a part of like their competency or qualifying exams, take the EPPP. Oh, I don't even know what all the letters in EPPP stands for, but it's like the test that most people, or I think everyone has to take to become
Yeah.
licensed psychologists. It's sort of like the psychology SAT or GRE or whatever. So it's a standardized test. Yeah. Anyway, so I think that some people have taken it already. I don't think anyone in my
Oh,
internship cohort has taken it, but we have heard of some programs that require it as a part of their like competency exams or like candidacy exams.
mhm.
So they were like, you can take it during internship if you want to. There's no pressure to do that, but you can do it. I don't think anyone in my cohort is going to do it because internship is a lot. But I think the vast majority of people do it during their postdocs. Lots of postdocs have like time built in or give you money to take the EPPP so that you can
Oh,
start working on your licensure. There are some postdocs that I've seen that like sort of like give you a time limit of like when you need to take it, but during the postdoc. So like there was one place that was like, oh, you need to take the EPPP within like 8 months of being in your postdoc, and so
oh,
they also
wow.
give you time to study. So yeah, I think almost everyone I know that has taken it has done it during their postdoc.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I've also heard of programs having like after their 2 years they do their comprehensive exams, and then it's optional for those students to also take their EPPP exams. Especially when you go through your candidacy exams, you learn all that material, and sometimes it's like beneficial for when that material is fresh in your mind to also go ahead and take the
Right.
EPPP. So I know there's some
Right.
states that are set up
Exactly.
like that as well. So that's interesting though. It's kind of cool to see a different perspective. Again, it's one of those things of like, I think for me, the balancing act of psychology has been all these different things that take place, whether it's your schoolwork or getting ready for your internship or doing your dissertation or also going and studying for your licensure exam. And I'm sure for you, like what has been like, what advice would you give for students who are maybe just now starting their graduate program and kind of how to navigate all of those different things?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned, like just navigating graduate school, is like being flexible and like there are things that are going to be beyond your control and just like I think one finding a system that works for you, right? So like
Mm,
there's going to be lots of what I like to call buckets or like projects or program things that you need to do, right? And so like making sure that you're figuring out how to balance those buckets for yourself. Like sometimes those buckets like get overfilled or like, they have the analogy about the balls like juggling and like which ones are glass, which ones can bounce back. And so, like, figuring that out, I don't think you'll figure it out in your first year. I also think I'm still figuring out. Each year is very different. And so, like, being flexible with like your methods of like balancing all the things is going to be really important. And I think the second thing is just like being okay with like it being ambiguous, which was a hard lesson for me to learn. And I'm still learning because psychology and like how we just do program things, it's like sometimes it's not going to be in black and white and there's like this huge gray area and you just got to like sit there and hang out with it. And I think that's something I had to learn and I'm still trying to learn of being like, hey, I don't know this, but that's okay too. Or
mm,
like this isn't as clear as I would want it to be of like how I get from like starting graduate school to being a psychologist because the road is all muddled and you really can't see the next step until you're right on it. Like that lesson is super important and I feel like people don't necessarily talk about it. My advisor my first year was like, you're going to have to sit in the gray area and it's going to suck, especially as somebody who is like academically rigorous. Like we want the right answers and we want to know how things are going to go, but we don't. We have no clue how these things are going to work out. And so learning to be okay with that gray area, I think will
mm.
serve you really well as you're like matriculating through school and trying to get to like the psychologist you want to be.
I think that's really great advice because there is something to be said about, you want to arrive at your destination as quickly as possible sometimes. And I think like in learning how to go through the step-by-step process and all the ups and downs, I feel like you do learn to appreciate where you are today because of all of the things that you went through and all of the things that you've learned, and even all of the people that have come into your life to kind of help you through that. And so the journey, for me, even just enjoying the journey rather than waiting till the destination has been something that I've been trying to meditate on more
Yeah.
frequently. And it's tough.
It is because you like have to do both, right? Like you have to hold both in your hands. Like you have to hold like being present while also working towards this future thing and like being okay with
Exactly.
holding both. Sometimes it's hard.
Oh
Or
my
like sometimes we're
gosh.
holding on to like future stuff more than we're holding on to like, wow, this is a really cool experience that I'm doing right now. So yeah, I think that's
Yes.
super great advice too.
And I mean, everybody kind of goes through it in a different way too. And so learning how you go through it yourself and trusting yourself even through that process. I think this is a good segue into my next question, which is, for the self-care of mental health professionals. And, we advocate for this in our patients and in our clients. but how do we represent that even in our own lives? What were some of the things that you did for self-care? It could be your wellness for your physical, mental, spiritual health, any things that you did for fun to kind of help you get through get through what you went through.
Yeah, I think I feel like there's lots of things that I've tried and like at the time they worked and then like sometimes they like fade out as like self-care and then they'll work, at a different time or I'll do a different practice. I think finding community has been really helpful for me. Like I am like a people person. Like I like being around people. I'm kind of introverted, which I feel like people on YouTube probably don't believe me, but like I'm introverted, but I like love being around people. Like growing up there was always people at our house. And so like that's really important to me, like being around people. I think I was like working out a lot during grad school for self care. Now I don't because the gym is just way too far from my apartment and I can't do it. I just want to come home at the end of the day. I think like just finding things that you can do for fun, like just finding like I like video games, so I've been playing a lot of video games for self care right now or reading. Like I think for me, like finding out what self care things work for right now is how I've been doing it instead of like trying to build a practice that I'm going to do every day until I die. Like it just that's not how I work. And I like to like sometimes my self care waxes and wanes, and so like I like to do things that fit with whatever time I'm in.
That's
Mhm.
so cool. I mean, it's awesome knowing because I feel like even with me, self-care has been something that has progressed even as I've gone through, right? And so I think initially I would do a lot more of reading, and now I feel like I do more walking or I do more just being in community myself and
Uh,
learning that it's amazing being able to go through a self-care experience with another person too, and how that could be sort of like this, you can get the benefits of both social interaction as well
right.
as your mental and spiritual well-being as well. So I think you bring up a valuable point of like how it can also transform as you go through the years.
Yeah, I think that's something I wasn't like aware that was going to happen. Like I think I was like, I need to work out. I know this is what I need to be doing for self-care when like there's all these different forms of self-care that you can try and like if it works great and if it doesn't, you can try again. There's like tons of options
Absolutely.
out there. So yeah, I think that's something that I hadn't appreciated before.
Absolutely. One last question. I mean, you kind of already kind of answered this question, but is there anything that you wish you knew about grad school that you'd love to tell the audience? Anything that
Oh
you wish you
man. I feel like there's lots of stuff I wish.
knew?
I think something that has been coming up a lot recently is just like being okay with like it not looking exactly how you pictured it. Like grad school is an amazing like journey and it's hard. Like it's not like all sugar cookies and rainbows. And so like appreciating that it's hard, not just like academically. I feel like people like are like, "Oh, it's going to be hard work like school stuff." But like it's hard because you're also growing up. Like you're also maturing. You're not the same person you were like even when you applied. And so I think like being okay with like that change and like being flexible with yourself, not only to be challenged intellectually but like personally and like self-carry, like you're going to be challenged and then like being okay with that. Like I think I thought that I was going to be the exact same person that I was when I started grad school, and I'm totally not. And I totally love this version of me so much more. But like I think at the time I was like so resistant to like change. I was like, nope, this is how I do it. This is how I'm going to study. This is how I'm going to self care. And then like once I let go of like how I thought things were supposed to be, like it
Mm.
opened up like more opportunity for things to be even better than I anticipated.
That's such a valuable point because I think there was something that you brought up earlier about how, like, even going to graduate school, like, you're one of the few people probably in your social circle to do so, right? Like, most people are going into full time work.
Yeah,
They're getting money, they're getting an actual salary and
right.
benefits right after college. And you are going to college and you're paying for it. And there isn't that much money coming in, whether you have a stipend or maybe some funding, but still. And so it's a very unique part of life, I think, especially if you're going into it in your 20s or your 30s,
Yeah.
because there isn't a lot of people that can relate necessarily. And there's not necessarily a playbook that shows you step by step what to do,
Right.
especially because there's such a diverse range of experiences. It's kind of like you just kind of figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool to, I think, hear your story, because hopefully it gives people a sense of peace of like, okay, it's okay if I don't have it all figured out. Like that's honestly is part of it.
Right, exactly. I feel like that's, such a big part of like growing and maturing as a professional is just like figuring these things out. Like you're not gonna know as soon as you start. And I think, sometimes when we start graduate school, I know I was like this of just like, I need to know exactly how this is going to go, or else I'm not going to be successful. And like, you can still be successful and figuring it out at the same time. Like, every day I'm figuring it out. Like, nothing is like, I know how to do this 100%. Like, I'm still learning and growing. And, like, people always say that graduate school doesn't stop your life, and it doesn't have to. Like, you're still growing up, you're still learning, and like, we grow as people until we die. And so like, why not use this
Absolutely.
time to continue that flexibility of growing up?
Absolutely. I love that. Well, Tanisha, I'd love for you to share a plug too about ways that people can connect with you. I know we already talked about your YouTube channel. I will definitely put all of the links down in the show link or in the show notes below. But any other social media things that you want to let people know about?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at t.renee. Those are the main places I am. I mean, I have a Facebook page, but I'm not really on it. I also like am starting to stream on Twitch my games, but that's like very new, because my friends like to play games, and so we've been streaming those together, and that's pretty much it. Oh, the Twitch channel is also t.renee. So if you're into gaming and watching me learn how to become a gamer again, that's there.
Let's go. I will definitely put all of those links down below, and definitely people definitely check out. If you haven't checked out her channel, Renee's Corner, like I said, it's awesome, and it's really cool to meet another creator like yourself who is balancing all these different parts of their life. And I really appreciate you coming on the channel and just sharing about your life. I really, really appreciate it. So
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to like be here and be able to share if it helps people.
it was a pleasure.